Okay, so I've been thinking about how to go about solving this or getting this working, and the two things I thought about was first one was I was thinking to create like some sort of adapter, and that would just be its own Python program. And instead of this calling solve on um, the problem, it would like call solve on the adapter, and then um, that would basically do all the other stuff that needs to do. So it would call actual solve on the pulp, and it would get the MPS file back. That would call the um, solver, get the actual solution back. And then once that was all done, it would come back and return the status or whatever. But even if I did that, the problem is I still have the same problem where the module I'm trying to use, let me do something real quick. The module I'm trying to use, it would still be in another file without making a ton of changes, basically. So for that reason, I think it would be best, or at least the solution I decided on that I'm going to work on and test, is to just within pulp. So this will not change, and actually that is what I wanted to do anyways. But within pulp here, where it would normally call the subprocess, which it would be the executable, it will call a JavaScript function from here, and the JavaScript function would then call the WebAssembly CBC solver. And the problem with that, and I need to do some testing, is so basically, so in here it's going to call the JavaScript function, and I don't know how well that's going to work if I add that code into here. If it doesn't work well for some reason, um, actually I don't see why it wouldn't. Maybe, but if it doesn't work well, I'll have to do the adapter, like I was saying, the adapter um, program. But assuming it works well when I try it, it'll call the JavaScript function from in here. The JavaScript function will call out to the other thing, and the way it does that is through post message because it's running in a web worker. And what I'll do is it'll post the message. That function will call post message, and then it will like wait. How will that work actually? Because in there, I was thinking within the post message after it calls it, it would there's gonna have to be some promise that I have to wait till it settles. And yeah, that's what I could do. I could have a promise that settles once, um, after it calls post message. Once receive message is called with a certain thing, then it will settle the promise and then call back out to, um, not call back out to, it will resume execution. It will return from the JavaScript function, resume execution from a Python code, and and then it'll have, instead of having the MPF file, it'll actually have the solution here, and then that will work as normal. That's the plan. So I got to do some tests first. I don't want to do all that within the actual code. So the first test I want to do is actually just um, calling JavaScript from Python and setting up a scenario in there where it's basically the same thing that I'm trying to do, but like a mock scenario. Let's see here. So accessing JavaScript from Python. Yeah, without making some major changes, I don't see how else I can do it without calling JavaScript from within Python. Because, yeah, I'd have to make just some pretty big changes to the code, I think. Just how it works if I didn't do that, basically. I don't see how else I could do it. So let's try this first. Accessing JavaScript scope from Python. Okay. So let's just set up a JS, another project, we'll call it Python call JS. And I can copy everything within pulp test, except I don't need these things. And paste it in here. Cool. And then let's open this in VS Code. All right. So the same setup is over here. Let's get rid of this. Um, don't need that. I'm gonna get rid of all these elements, I think. Yeah, I don't need any of this. Definitely don't need any of this. And then let Python code. I'm gonna keep that how it is. And then in here, I'm gonna import. Don't need any of this. Actually, I could just erase this whole file. We're just gonna import JS, not JSON. And let Pyodide equals await main py. Okay. For right now, I'm gonna go const return. No. Python return equals that, and console.log Python returns. I think I want to do something else with the return. I don't know. We'll see. All right, and then I need a function in here. So first I'm going to do it all in the main thread, and then I'm going to move. I think eventually I'm going to need to use the web workers too. Using Pyodide in a web worker. Yeah. Okay, so let's just do a function called test JS call. Or we'll just call it JS. Yeah, we'll call it test JS call. That's fine. What happened? For now, let's just do console log from JS call. And then main is called, that's fine. Import JS. And can I just do js.sjs call from here? Let's just try that, see what we get. Do I have a bunch of stuff running over here? I'll just have this. Let's close that for now. Reveal in File Explorer. Open live server. It opened over here. All right. So from JS call. Okay, so it's that easy. Now I want to return from here. Uh, from JS call, return. We'll return a number, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then uh, return number or val print value. So we should see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I also want to just test if this goes in like order. And it waits. It should, right? Okay, so print before JS call, and then print after JS call, and then return value JS call returns that. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, before JS call, from JS call, after JS call, and it returns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. All right, so that's easy. Now, next step is to set up a promise. So let's go from JS call, um, await new promise, function resolve and reject, and then let's immediately resolve to just empty string, make this an async function, and it will, yeah, this should be fine, right? Okay, await new promise. Okay, see what happens. Okay, before just call, from, after, future. Okay, right. So it uses, since it's an async function, it's gonna give back a future, which is similar to a promise, right? I think. I don't know. So, but that's what they're mapping it from. Um, so I also wanted to test, like, it shouldn't matter, but I just want to see set timeout function. Let's do 2000. Yeah, let's wait 5 seconds just to make sure. And then we'll call resolve from in here. And I could just pass resolve, right? Resolve, I think. Okay. All right. So let's see what that does. So it doesn't. uh, So that is actually an issue, I think. So I actually need to wait in here or something. Yeah, I think. Yeah, because it's gonna keep executing. Yeah, it's gonna keep executing. Okay. Um, let's just see without even looking it up if I could just type await. No, only allowed within an async function. So I get the same thing going on here. Definition, test JS call. Do you just do async? Probably really look this up since I've never done it, but and then let's do test JS call. Let's just do it. Let's do it so it doesn't. It's very clear we're not talking about the same actual function. JavaScript versus Python. Okay. Before JS call, we call. After JS call, and then return value. Let's do ret value equals up here. Okay, let's see what that does. Coroutine.js call was never awaited. Enable trace mount to get the object allocation trace back. Okay. Okay. Oh, let me think about this. So does it need to be async? The problem is, yes, it does need to be async. And the reason it needs to be async, I'm pretty sure, is because I have to use post message. The only other solution is to have the thing run in the main thread, which is not a terrible idea. For my use case, it's actually fine, I think, and maybe most use cases, because the user should not be messing with the UI at all while it's running. Um, but it would be nice to not have it lock up the main thread. So yeah, if is a web worker, does web worker help overall performance? Yeah, it improves overall page performance, but obviously, right? Hmm. Yeah, I don't think it helps the overall performance in terms of just raw performance, but it obviously won't block the main thread, so. I'm just trying to think now. Do I want to go down this path where I'm using a web worker when I don't need to? So I definitely don't need to. The only reason it needs to is it's running in a web worker. Very interesting. I'm gonna think about this for a minute and see what I think. See what I can come up with. I mean, it is like your first instinct is like, yeah, don't lock the main thread, right? Because it's just usually bad experience. But someone's using the solver. Like, do they need to get to other parts of the page? First of all, if it's the only real part of the page, then definitely no. If it's built around a site that has more things involved, then that would suck. It would be nice to have it run in the background. Um, I'm kind of tempted to just do it without a web worker, get it working, and then I'm just thinking if I do that though, I might just settle on that. If that's good. Yeah, I'm gonna think about this probably for another minute, and then I'll go one way or the other. I know this for sure. Other things in the market, and I'm not really trying to compete to be honest, but other um, products that are similar, I am almost positive all of them run on the server. And in that case, they don't need to worry about any of that. Hmm. But that doesn't matter for me. I just need to think, what do I want? If it was me by myself, and I was only thinking about myself, I would definitely go with just lock the main thread, so I don't care. Hmm. Another thing to think about is I think it's a done deal if I could run it in the main thread, right? So how would it, let's just forget, let's pretend I'm not going to go web workers. Let's see if it's even a challenge or even anything that's like, are we good to go if it's that, if that's the case? So let's say the user clicks go and um, first thing that happened is it runs this optimized code, I guess. Well, it takes in the values and then it runs the optimized code. Just a basic optimized call. That's one. Where is it? Test. This one. And, or this one. And from there, that will, that will call back to a JS function. That JS function will then call, without using send post message, it will call the optimize function, which we've already looked at. And then from there, that will return its value back to the JS function, which will then return that value back to um, the other code, the optimized code, and then it will continue and return the value back. Yeah, I think if my plan was to let it run on the main thread, I think we're good to go. I don't think there's anything interesting to that. Figure out how that works. So I think, yeah, and I might build there's another, so that's one plus in going down the path of getting the web worker to work, right? The other plus I can think of is, well, the reason that's a plus, what I was saying before is, give me an opportunity to try some stuff and get more practice and figure out how to use more features of this Pyodide, basically. Um, but the other plus would be I might make a site that's kind of has more tools, articles, things that can be used on top of this. And it would be nice if that site, if you go to that part of the site, first of all, having it be part of a site and not just its own separate thing, right? So say it's this, one piece of a site. It would be nice to let that run in a web worker, have the app be an SPA, single page app, and they can navigate around to different parts of it. And like, so they kick this thing off, they let it run, and then they um they go to different parts of the site, right? They're not stuck on that one part, right? Because if they navigate away from it, then it would stop working. Um, so it'd have to be a single page application. And in order for the rest of that to work, it'd have to run in the background. So I think I'm going to explore the web worker part of it and see what we can come up with. It'll definitely be more interesting. All right, so, and maybe we'll run into an issue and find out you can't do it yet, and then we'll be back to square one, but let's see. I did look up earlier, where is that? I looked up this. I actually was searching for calling JS from Pyodide, and I found this. And it's exactly what I'm trying to do right now. So let's take a look. Import, inference. The coroutine was expected but got a promise. What is my error? Was never awaited. Okay. The coroutine in Python won't run by default. It has to be scheduled. If you never schedule a coroutine, its destructor will print a runtime warning. On the other hand, so what he was using schedules a coroutine. What? Anyways, on the other hand, a future represents a result that has already been scheduled. A JavaScript promise is like a future since the corresponding computation has already been scheduled. Anyways, if you call a JavaScript asynchronous function, no call to anything like async will run as necessary, it will happen. However, the asynchronous JavaScript function runs on the same thread as Pyodide. So if you don't ever yield the thread, it won't ever execute. Okay. You can await the promise or use async IO gather or just let the current Python code finish before executing. Async def test return. So this is something else. Makes it so you can use top level await in Python run async. Ah, right. I think that's what I need actually. Is it that simple? Run Python async. Let's see. I think still having some issues. Coroutine.js call is never awaited. Oh, right. Await. JS call. So we do get a warning there. Let's test equals, or no, not test equals. We get a warning there, but maybe it will work because this. Okay. Promise pending. So it does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it does wait at least before continuing. So it does stop here. Let me see if I get an error if I get rid of this. Yeah. Okay. So that does allow you to use top level await. Even though the linter is complaining. Okay. Before JS call, from JS call, after JS call. JS call return none. Okay. So we just want to return that test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why? Where are we getting this from? From is pending. Index 13? Oh, right. So we need to wait. Okay. We should get, I don't know, does Python return anything by default? Undefined. Um, is this a thing? Or no? No. Alright, cool. That seems to work. Could lower the timeout a little bit. I don't really need the timeout. I was just making sure visually I can see it pausing. So it runs before JS call, from JS call, waits 2 seconds. After JS call return that. Cool. That's right. It's the last thing that you put is returned. So test, we should see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Nice. Okay, so let's see. Let me think if that's what I need to do. So this function, so again, this runs, it calls optimize. Optimize, instead of calling the sub process, is going to call, or pulp is gonna do an asynchronous call. Is that possible? Let me see. I could just make this asynchronous, I think. And then it's gonna call the JS function in here. And the JS function is going to, so we'll be back here. Oops, there we go. So the JS function is going to have a new promise that will resolve when what if we took this out and never called resolve? What's gonna happen? It just pauses forever, right? It's exactly what I want, actually. It's what I was hoping and what I was expecting, so it's good. So before JS call, from JS call. Cool. By the way, something I read earlier too that I thought I may or may not use is interrupting execution. I will probably want this at some point because I want the user to be able to click a cancel button or a stop, and it will probably have to do this. Make everything work okay. So I'll look into it later, but okay. So that's good. All right. Looks good. And then it's just pausing here forever, which is exactly what I was hoping. All right. So within here, it's going to call post message and then post message How does that work? Because we have this resolve function, right? So I want that to be called. Can we turn this into like a global function? Is that possible? Is that weird or what? Resolve equals resolve? Because I want to be able to access that in receive message or on message equals. This will be like worker on. Here, let's make a worker. Let's do let worker equals new worker. JavaScript file. Can you do that without a JavaScript file? But it'll be like worker dot on message equals function, and then it'll say if message data, if message dot data equals done or something like that, then it will call resolve. Something like that, or global resolve. Is there another way to do that though? Wonder if this has any errors. Yeah, you gotta pass in the JavaScript file. Here, let's just make one. Okay. No, I need to know, can you create a worker from a worker? Or no? Create web worker from web worker. Web worker. I want to say no, but maybe. What are shared workers? Other types of workers? So worker, can worker, web worker communicate with another web worker? Message channel? Really? I actually didn't think it was possible. Maybe it is. The message channel interface of the channel messaging API allows us to create a new message channel and send data through it. Hmm, interesting. Occasionally, want web workers to communicate with each other. Doing so is not obvious, as most web worker examples are about communicating between the main thread and a web worker. There, one uses post message to send messages directly to the worker. Okay. I gotta think about this for a minute. So, two things. Do I want everything in a worker outside the main thread? Maybe not. For a second, let's assume I'm gonna put everything outside of the main thread. If I put everything outside the main thread, then what will that look like? Before I do that, let me look at how this works. This document describes how to use Pyodide to execute Python scripts asynchronously in a web worker. In your application code, create a web worker, new worker, and attach listeners to it using on message methods. Communicate from the worker to the main thread. The web worker is responsible for running scripts in its own separate thread. The worker API exposes a consumer to provider communication interface. The consumers want to run some scripts outside the main thread, so they don't block the main thread. Our goal is to run some Python code in another thread. This other thread will not have access to the main thread objects. Therefore, we'll need an API that takes as input not only the Python script we want to run, but also the context on which it relies. I'll be right back. I gotta turn on the fan. Here's an example of consumer that will exchange with the web worker. Okay. The consumers want to run some scripts outside the main thread so they don't block the main thread. Okay. What is async run? The Pi worker is hold on. So the API, right, right, okay. Using a web worker is advantageous because the Python code is run in a separate thread from your main UI. However, at present, Pyodide does not support sharing the Python interpreter and packages between multiple web workers or with your main thread. Hmm, interesting. I think you could have how many web workers can run? Unlimited number of web workers. Okay. Let's see. Trying to think back to what I'm trying to achieve. So is this? Let's check something really quick. Input type equals text. So if I bring this back, comment out this as well. Alright. Set timeout. I'll set it to 5 seconds. Okay. Let's see, is this locking? I don't think so. Here, let's do this. Let's make it even more clear, I guess. Let's add a button. Uh, Click, and then I'll just call it add, I guess. And then um ID equals add button. Then in here, let's say let number equals 0, and then document dot add event listener. Uh, Click, function, let's say, let's add a div or paragraph, I guess. Start it off at 0. And we'll say is ID is test number or something. And here, document get element ID dot, and then this is going to be add button. Click is going to working. Make sure it's hooked up right. So it seems to be fine. I'll have to do another test, but like working, and then what am I doing? Document get element ID number dot text content equals number number plus equals 1. It only freezes up while it's loading, that's fine. But like while that promise is running, fine. So that should be okay actually, because yeah, it's no problem. It's not locking up the main thread, right? So from JS call, it's waiting 5 seconds, and it returns that never quit working. Okay, so that's good. So yeah, that's going to resolve as soon as uh, and that's going to be in a separate worker, right? So this is a thing that's actually doing the processing is going to be in a separate worker. That should be fine, I think. Seems like that would be fine, right? So it calls the solver. The solver is similar to this, kind of, in my setup. The solver calls this, well, pulp, I should say, calls this actual solver in WebAssembly. And what that does is it calls a function in here that has a promise, and that promise, well, the function sends a message to run the solution. That is actually run in a, that's already running in a web worker. That does its thing. It comes back, and eventually will post a message that it's done. And that, if this resolve thing works, like I'm hoping, will, that will go back to this, and continue execution. It might freeze it up for a minute though. Because what happens after it's done solving? Solving's the long part, right? Like optimally, it would be nice to move everything into a web worker, right? Everything. Um, in order to do that, I would definitely need to do this for sure. But I think most of the processing is done in, it will be a little bit annoying. I mean, let's say the user can browse around the page. There will be a time where I think it'll lock it up just for a second um, while it runs this part, or it finishes what it's doing. Hmm. It's pretty interesting. Um, should I put it back into, should I, yeah, because the only other way would be to also run this in a web worker. I think we have a bunch of other challenges for that. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, let's simulate a long running process or something in the web worker. So let's come back here. This worker, was it they from worker? No? Oh, it's up here, right? Okay. So this worker, well, we're gonna do on message, and then we're gonna do um, post message, and here worker dot post message. We're gonna send it an object. Yeah, we'll just send it go. And then from the worker, we'll do self dot on message equals a function. It takes in a message. And then for now, we'll just console log that message. Worker message. Let's see if this does something. Let's change this. It's fine. 5 seconds. I'll change it to 2500. A little bit longer than 2 seconds. Oh, I need to do data. Data. And from in here, message.data equals done. And let's just say worker finished. Worker go. Okay. And then we'll get rid of this timeout. Do this weird global resolve thing. Um, and from the worker, uh, self dot post message done. For now, let's just call resolve still in here. See if everything, so worker finished, worker go. Well, I did that wrong. From within here, well, okay, so it gets the go message. It will call, well, let's do await new promise. Async. Await new promise. Same thing as I did in there. Function set timeout. Uh, resolve after 2500. Okay. And then after that resolves, oh, no, I don't want to call resolve. Well, what do you think about this? So on message, it does some processing, it resolves, and then after that, it does the post message. I don't know, I think that's right. Sounds right. Saying it's done. And then, so it's done. Um, and it should say worker finished. Okay, let's see what we get. Worker go, worker finished. All right, cool. Um, I don't want to call resolve in here. Does this make any sense? What I'm doing? I don't know. It's very weird. Never done anything like this. So worker finished. All right, well, the moment of truth, global resolve. Okay, I mean, kind of worked. And the whole time we should hopefully have access to change this. And we do. Alright, I don't know. Seems weird, but it kind of worked. So it runs async. This comes in here, calls the pulp, or calls the optimizer. The optimizer calls pulp. Pulp is going to do something like this, call this function. It'll come back here. From here, it will call it. It'll post a message to the worker to do the solution. Send it the solution. Test JS input. So this needs to be the MPS contents, right? Not necessarily. No, it actually doesn't because the other thing can create the file. And the file, yeah, the file can then be accessed by the web worker CBC solver. This makes sense. I want to see if you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's see if we see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. JS call takes 0. Oh, whoops, wrong place. Yeah. Anyways, so runs that. It will read the file that was already created. Um, or I could just give it text, I think. I don't know. And from there, it will solve it. It will, when it's done, say done. We'll get the message of done. And then it will resolve this. Gosh, it says it's kind of sloppy. I don't think it's right. Something's wrong with it. But in my mind, in theory, it would work. How long have I been going? An hour? Man, every time I stream for an hour, it feels like I've been streaming for at least 2. It's kind of rough to talk a lot. Um, but I do like it. I do enjoy it. It's just, yeah, it's not easy. I think I'm gonna take a break. I'm hitting a little bit of a wall. It's getting a little late, not too late. I might work on it a little bit off stream, I think. Think about it a little bit more. Maybe I'll come up with a better way of doing this. 'Cause I'm not that happy with this, but it does seem like it would work. It does depend on, it does depend on when I modify pull, if it actually works as I'm hoping. I think it will. 'Cause that is not exactly the same as the way I have it set up, right? I'm using this async stuff, run Python async or whatever, but that shouldn't matter because it's going to be inside of a function. But yeah, it's using run Python. I don't think it'll work any different because I'm importing it instead or whatever. What is that called? Loading it, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. Um, yeah, so I might work on that, test that out, see how that goes. Before I stop, though, there's one other thing I want to look at. So is this even something that's possible without a ton of changes in my current setup? So we want to run some Python async. Mm, pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't think it'd be easy or even worth it to even try to get pulp working in a worker. But maybe. Also, before I go, is there anything else I can think of right now that would make this a little bit more less weird, I guess? I mean, I've never personally done this where have a promise, I assign the resolve to another global variable and I call it somewhere else. It does seem to work, it's just very weird. And probably error prone. Hmm. Like I'm thinking I should just rearrange a little bit different, like a higher level promise, like not a promise inside of here. But then I have the issue of I'm calling JS from a library, and then how do I do that, right? And that has to wait for something to finish. Gotta be a better way to do this, right? Like, I don't think there is though. I don't know. I'm gonna stop there. I think I made some really good progress. I got a little test setup going. Pretty happy with at least for now, kind of. And yeah, keep going next time and work a little bit off stream, maybe a lot. See if I can set some stuff up. If I do anything off stream, what I'm gonna do is at least the first thing I'm gonna do is try to implement the same idea in here, build it, use it, see if we're getting some sort of thing that'll work for us for what I'm trying to do. So cool. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Might be later tonight. We'll see. But yeah, thanks.